Today is day 87 of 100 random acts of kindness. I had this exact same feeling during the 100 random acts of, or the 100 days of gratitude. I had the same feeling around this time of like, oh God, it's day 87 and I want to keep going and I want to, do this for another 100 days. And what if I don't share everything? And I just had kind of these feelings of, oh, I'm not ready for it to be over yet. Which I know a lot of people who did the 100 Days of Katie, they did one day and they really struggled through it. So I always think that's interesting that I want to do, like, I enjoy doing it every day and I love sharing these things with everybody. And for some people, it's so difficult to get in front of the camera. Just interesting how we're all built differently, I guess. Today was a rough day. I didn't go to my hospice day program, which I absolutely love going to, because although it helps me mentally, physically I was not having a great day, and I thought, well, I'm either going to suffer mentally and not go, or suffer physically and go. And today, physically won. And I've been at the hospital every day. Like, I've been at the hospital Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So I kind of thought, you know what, I'm not gonna do something based on cancer today. So I didn't end up going, which was a shame. But I'm not getting the same benefits or reaction, I guess, as I had kind of thought that I was going to from the transfusion. And I kept being told, it's going to feel like you can run a marathon and you're going to feel so great. And I don't feel bad. Like, it's not like I didn't benefit from it. I think my legs feel a little less jello-y and my heart isn't quite racing the way it was from doing something really menial. But I'm not getting that big surge of energy that everybody kind of told me that I would, which is really too bad. Mind you, I am on chemo, and this chemo in particular, one of the big things outside of hand and foot syndrome and some stomach issues is fatigue. And I can definitely feel that throughout the day. So I can't expect that a transfusion is going to absolutely fix everything. I just kind of thought it would fix a little more. The day of the transfusion, like I shared, that doctor came up and saw me, which was unbelievable. And then the day of the transfusion, I shared that the random act of kindness for that day was the person who donated the blood. And another thing from that day that I want to share is about Leah. So I've talked about Leah a number of times, and she was on 100 Days of Katie very often. But just to kind of reiterate, Leah and I met in kindergarten, so we're 33 now. She's actually 34. I'll be 34 in a couple weeks. And we've grown up kind of being each other's sister. Like, we just grew up knowing each other. We've known each other 30 years, which is kind of insane. And she and I have just always, I don't know, we have just this cosmic connection that we really are each other's sister. And so in March of this year, we live in a really small village outside of Ottawa, and she bought a house in this little village to be close to Keith and I. And you ask 100 people who have a best friend who are dying of cancer, or who is dying of cancer, if they would buy a house close to them just to be close to them. And I don't know that many who would just uproot their lives and do that. She is just one in a million. She's just such an incredible human being. It's unbelievable. So she texted me. We were in the hospital at this point. I'm hooked up getting somebody else's blood. It's kind of a claustrophobic feeling where it's this strange, overwhelming, my blood is mixing with somebody else's. I'm trying not to think about it too much. I'm also very emotional because somebody else has just donated this blood and now it's going into me and helping my life. I'm getting emotional again just speaking about it. It was very, I was really preparing myself for the physical side of it because I don't like needles and the IV of it and everything, but I was not prepared for the emotional side of it. And so anyway, just kind of processing all of that, and then having that doctor come up who we met on Twitter, and then we met in person for the first time as I'm getting a transfusion. She ended up being a hematologist. Like, it was a very emotional day. So Leah texts me and says, do you need anything? And so I said, we need sugar. There was no sugar in the house, and Keith likes a coffee in the morning, and I needed Gatorade, and that seems to be something that I can drink a lot of. I've always been a water drinker, but just sometimes with some of the treatment I've been on, water just tastes funny. When I was in IV chemo, water was horrible, and I really liked the taste of water. And it's not horrible now. I still drink water, but Gatorade really seems to be good, and I am dehydrated, so I'm fine with taking the sugar from Gatorade as well. So I just said sugar and Gatorade. So she says, no problem, I'm on it. So we get home, and I had forgotten that we had even had that conversation. And on our counter, the only things on our counter was sugar, Gatorade. Keith likes, I think they're called Rainier cherries. And because I budget everything, though they're the most expensive cherries, or not the most expensive, I don't know, I'm sure there's a very expensive cherry in this world, but they're out of normal cherries, and these are much more expensive cherries, so I always give them a hard time about liking the more expensive ones. And so on the counter was like this massive bag of these Rainier cherries with a card that says Keith's name on it, and this beautiful bouquet of flowers that have a card with my name on it. And so not only did she get those two things that we needed, there's also sitting there flowers for me and a card for Keith and his favorite cherries, which I just think is like, I don't know if I would just think to do these things for people. Like, that, to me, that is just so kind that, well, while I'm getting her sugar and Gatorade, I'll also get her husband one of his favorite treats and her some beautiful flowers. And then inside the card, which it's always interesting, I had a great aunt one time say to me when I was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer, we were at the same thing, and she said, now I've heard you've had some problems lately. Now that's an older generational thing that they can't say the word cancer and people don't talk about it openly and stuff. And I said, well, I haven't had some problems, but I have had cancer. Like, I really struggle with that kind of, the whole people can't address it, and I know you've been going through some stuff. We'll just call it like it is. Like, don't. Anyway, so Leah wrote right in the card, in both Keith's card and my card. In Keith's card, she wrote, I'm so sorry you're watching your young wife, or I'm so sorry your young wife needed a blood transfusion today. And in my card said, I can't believe you've needed a blood transfusion. I'm so sorry you're going through that. And I thought, oh, that honesty is just so refreshing. And she just, obviously, we know each other so well. But my random act of kindness goes to Leah, because just the stuff that she does is just, it's awesome. And I just think that kind of, she had the element of surprise, like I had no idea, and to come home with, and to remember Keith too. So often people do things for me which I will forever be grateful for, but sometimes Keith is kind of not forgotten about. Nobody forgets about him. People do ask about him, but it's not the same, and he's going through just as much as I am. It's just a little different. We're going through the same things from different perspectives, if you will. So I'm always grateful when Keith is included too. So I love you so much, Leah. And today is totally devoted to you. I'm forever grateful. Talk to you tomorrow.